The damp smell of rust and oil clung to the air as rain snaked down the cracked window of the old warehouse. My pulse beat against my throat like a warning. More of a team player, I repeated, voice flat as the flickering fluorescent above us hummed like an insect in heat. My fists, hidden in the folds of my coat, curled until my knuckles ached. Christopher Morgan didn't notice. He was too busy leaning back in that full-leather chair like he was king of this dying kingdom. "You're a force, Sarah," he said, grinning that waxy, PR-polished grin. "No one's denying it. But Lisa, she's warm. People like her. She knows how to soften a room. You bulldoze it." So that was it. Not numbers. Not performance. Not 6 years of bleeding efficiency into this decaying firm. Just that I didn't flirt with middle managers or ask about their weekend ski trips in Vermont. Outside, the rain hit the tin roof like applause. I stared at him. At the arrogance, the oblivion. He was already scanning for my acceptance, assuming I'd bite down and smile through the sting like I always had. But I didn't smile. Instead, I slid the white envelope across his greasy desk. It made a soft sound, barely audible over the rain and the buzzing light, but it hit like a gunshot. "What's this?" he asked, smirk faltering. "My resignation." 2 weeks. The word sliced through the room. He sat forward. "Sarah, come on. Don't overreact." "Overreact?" I said, the corner of my mouth twitching. "No. I'm just realigning my priorities. Like you taught me." He blinked. That was the moment the facade cracked. He looked small all of a sudden. Small and stupid. What he didn't know, what none of them had cared to notice, was that while I was propping up their sinking ship, I'd been building my own. Quietly. Relentlessly. A consulting firm born not from ambition, but from anger. My anger. 6 months ago, it became profitable. Last week, it surpassed Phoenix's quarterly margin. And yesterday, I got a patent for the software I'd written between midnight migraines and missed birthdays. I stood. His eyes followed me like a man realizing too late the knife was already in. I didn't bother looking back. As I stepped out into the hallway, dim, echoing, cluttered with rows of soul-starved cubicles, I felt them watching. The whispers followed me like shadows. Lisa looked up from her desk, blinking with wide-eyed innocence, her lips already parting to perform some chirpy, well-practiced sympathy. But I passed her in silence. Later, she cornered me in the stairwell, of all places, raw concrete walls, rain drumming against the metal fire door. "Sarah," she said, voice syrupy with rehearsed regret. "I hope you're not upset. I mean, I didn't ask for the promotion." I looked down at her heels, too clean for the city, too soft for real pressure, and smiled without warmth. "Of course not," I said. "You'll shine. Until the power goes out." She blinked, confused. Smiled harder. That smile people use when they think they've won. But in my coat pocket, I had the audit. The proof. Every report, every gain, every decision that had elevated this place, all traced back to me. Not on paper, not by title, but by execution. They gave her my chair. But I took the engine. 1 week later, a meeting in a rooftop bar near Chinatown. Midnight. Neon lights casting long reflections in my empty glass. Charles Murphy, Solstice Tech CEO, placed a contract on the table like a dealer showing his hand. "You're not made for middle management," he said. "You're made to burn the old system down." I signed without hesitation. Because I wasn't leaving quietly. I was coming back to conquer. The security badge was cold in my palm, slick with rainwater and sweat. I placed it on the steel tray by the freight elevator, the kind used to move crates, not people. The Phoenix Analytics building had been stripped of its shine by a steady downpour, its lobby lights flickering like a dying star. Then I heard it. "Sarah, wait." Christopher's voice echoed down the hall like an afterthought. I turned. Slowly, the elevator doors yawned open behind me, exhaling mechanical breath into the empty corridor. His office was dim when I entered, curtains drawn, only the blue glow of the city casting shadows across the desk. He didn't sit this time. He hovered, clutching a stack of stapled pages like they might explode in his hands. "This report," he said, voice tight and dry, "was in your resignation envelope." I gave him nothing. He shook the papers like an accusation. "Why didn't you tell us about the system?" "I did," I replied, sliding into the chair opposite him like I'd never once belonged there. 3 times, in fact. "You canceled each meeting to focus on team morale." His eyes dropped to the report again. Pale. Sweating now. He flipped through pages like trying to outrun what was already written in ink. His mouth moved before his brain could catch up. This is revolutionary. Sarah, this could have changed everything. The numbers, the retention curve. You filed a patent. 6 months ago, I said. And Solstice Tech, his voice cracked. You're going with them? I nodded once. They offered leadership, equity, respect. He sank into his chair like the weight of it finally reached his bones. Solstice is our biggest rival. You can't just hand them this. Loyalty, I said, the word curdling in my mouth. Isn't that what you called it when you promoted someone who didn't know how to run a basic data audit? When you dismissed my work because I didn't play corporate charades? He stared at me, lips parted, no words. Just the quiet sound of falling rain against glass and a man beginning to understand the cost of his oversight. I stood. I didn't build this out of ambition, Christopher. I built it out of necessity because no one was coming to save me. And I'm not staying just because you finally read the fine print. We'll match Solstice's offer, he blurted. Double it. Title, stock options, whatever it takes. I almost laughed. It's not about money, I said softly, looking down at him like he was already a relic. It's about finally being seen. Then I left. Behind me, the hallway stretched quiet and endless. Somewhere back there, he was dialing numbers with trembling fingers, trying to contain what had already slipped through his grasp. The damage wasn't coming, it had already arrived. That night, while boxing up the last of my things in the dim glow of my desk lamp, I found it. A pink sticky note clinging to the corner of my monitor like a parasite. Sorry to see you go. Keep in touch, Lisa. I stared at it for a second, then crumpled it and tossed it into the bin without ceremony. I didn't need her sympathy. Or her memory. She'd remember me soon enough. 3 days later, Solstice Tech HQ. The elevator doors opened into light. Floor-to-ceiling glass. Clean lines. Power humming beneath every surface. My name was already etched in glass on the corner office door. Sarah Bell, Director of Operational Strategy and Innovation. And more than that, respect. Actual, deliberate respect. At my welcome meeting, Charles Murphy stood before a full room and didn't just introduce me, he told the room why I was here. She didn't just improve operations. She reinvented them. Saved her former company millions while being ignored. That ends now. The applause was quiet but charged. There was awe in the silence. For the first time, I wasn't a shadow in the machine. I was the blueprint. 3 months later, the text came during a strategic planning session. I almost ignored it until I saw who it was from. Matthew Bailey. One of the few worth anything at Phoenix. Check the news. Big hit just dropped? I stepped out onto the balcony, cold air rushing against my skin as I opened my laptop. Phoenix Analytics suffers major client exodus after Q2 collapse. The article tore through them like a blade. Botched deadlines. Exploding budgets. 3 flagship clients gone. Their internal infrastructure described as critically fractured. The fallout was surgical, precise in the way only absence can be. But the quote that stopped my breath? The level of service has nosedived, said Anthony Rivera, CEO of Terra Nova. We used to trust Phoenix with high-volume rollouts. Now, we can't get basic timelines honored. It's like they've lost the backbone of their operations. They had. I didn't need to say a word. The silence said it for me. The system wasn't failing. The ghost had just walked out of the machine. And now she had a name. I didn't need to open the message. I already knew what it said. But I did anyway. Lisa's crying in the break room. Full spiral. Screaming into a paper towel. Matthew. The irony tightened like a knot in my throat. 6 months ago, she'd perched on my desk like a cat licking cream. Now, she was choking on the very thing she craved, responsibility. I leaned back in my chair, the skyline glowing molten behind me. Solstice HQ shimmered with sleek precision, clean steel, glass, intention. Everything Phoenix Analytics had pretended to be. Everything I'd always been. Lisa had always worn someone else's brilliance like perfume, light, sweet, gone by noon. Now the scent had faded and the real weight had arrived. Deliverables. Metrics. Strategy. Words she had once said with a smirk, now pressing on her like an anvil. And Christopher? Still clinging to the wreckage of a ship he steered into the rocks. I turned my attention back to the real work. The system I built wasn't just humming, it was scaling. Turnarounds were down 54%, profit margins were up 32%, and client churn was practically non-existent. One of the world's largest consulting firms had just sent over a 7-figure licensing proposal. I hadn't just left Phoenix. I had replaced it. It was a Thursday. Cold air. Clean light. I arrived early. Charles Murphy was already in my office, waiting by the window, a folded newspaper in one hand. His silhouette cut through the pale morning light like a verdict. "You'll want to see this," he said. I took the paper. Phoenix Analytics faces full restructure amid executive exodus, system failure. No frills. No mercy. They'd tried to rebuild my system from scratch. Tried to reverse engineer what they didn't understand. But they forgot something essential. The code had never been the product. I was. They lost 5 senior analysts last month, Charles said. 2 major clients the month before. Their board finally woke up, but not fast enough. I nodded. Which is why, he added, they've just handed us the rest of their market share. He handed me a second document, this one on company letterhead. Promotion. Executive Vice President, Strategic Innovation. My name printed in ink. It didn't feel like a reward. It felt like justice. I didn't need to say thank you. He already knew what it cost to get here. That afternoon, as shadows stretched long across the city, an email appeared in my inbox like a relic from another life. From Christopher Morgan. Subject, Apology. Sarah. I won't waste your time. I was wrong. About everything. We didn't just lose a system, we lost the person who held it together. I've resigned. Lisa's gone too. She never stood a chance. I told the board where we failed. I know it's too late. But I had to say it. You were right. Christopher. For a moment, I said nothing, just sat in the silence of a room I built with every rejection they once handed me. There was a time I'd have wept for words like those. Would have clutched them like a lifeline. But now? They were just noise. I typed back. Christopher. You're right, it is too late. But I hope you learned something from it. Take care. Sarah. I hit send and never thought of him again. The next morning, I gathered my team. Designers, engineers, strategists. No suits. No actors. Just visionaries who wanted to build something that didn't exist yet. I stood at the head of the glass conference room, sunlight flooding in behind me. This isn't just a team, I said. It's a laboratory. And we're not here to follow trends. We're here to break patterns. So get ready. I smiled. Because the future wasn't coming. I was already writing it. Today's not just about a product, I said, my voice steady as a blade. It's about remembering who we are, who we build for. The glass conference room was silent. Sunlight hit the polished table like a spotlight, casting sharp reflections onto the faces turned toward me. Some of them were young, eyes burning with the kind of hunger I once had. Others were seasoned, their silence not apathy, but respect. We're not launching a system, I continued. We're launching a standard. One rooted in something this industry keeps trying to forget, substance. The projector behind me flickered to life. Charts. Metrics. Results. But I didn't turn to look. This team was built by people who've been overlooked, passed over, laughed at in meetings for asking hard questions. People who know what it's like to be told you're too focused on outcomes, as if excellence is something to apologize for. A pause. Breath held. I looked them in the eye, one by one. That's why we win. Because we know something the world keeps forgetting. Performance is not arrogance. Competence is not aggression. Clarity is not coldness. A beat of silence. Then a slow murmur of assent. They understood. Not just the pitch. The why. They knew this company wasn't built on theater. It was built on the quiet discipline of people like me. That night, I drove through Gowanus, headlights slicing through mist. When I passed the old Phoenix Analytics building, I didn't mean to slow down. But I did. The letters on the side of the building were faded now. A for-lease banner hung slack in the window like a surrender flag. Only one light glowed in the entire structure, flickering weakly on the top floor, like a lighthouse trying to warn no one. Once, that sign had meant something to me. A destination. A measure of arrival. Now it looked like a relic. But I didn't feel triumphant. I felt grateful. Grateful they hadn't recognized me. Grateful they had made space for me to leave. Grateful because their rejection had forced me to build something that could never be taken. That kind of push, it doesn't crush you. It forges you. My phone buzzed in the center console. Matthew Bailey. Again. Phoenix board wants to talk. They're asking if you'd return as CEO. I stared at the message. Let the absurdity of it settle. Then typed back. Thanks, Matthew. But I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. I set the phone down and kept driving. Back at home, in the warm hush of my brownstone, I climbed the stairs to my study. A candle burned low on the corner of my desk. The walls were lined with quiet victory certificates, headlines, a single black and white photo of the first whiteboard where I'd sketched the original system architecture. I kept it there to remember. Not where I started, but how. I sat down. Around me, licensing proposals blinked in. Japan, Sweden, Sao Paulo. But above my desk hung something else. A quote. The words Christopher had once said to diminish me. You're too focused on results. Under it, I'd etched my own reply in brass. Exactly. I smiled. Not out of pride. Out of certainty. That focus, cold, obsessive, tireless, wasn't just a strategy. It was my shield, my compass, my redemption. It had brought me here. To leadership. To clarity. To peace. If you've made it this far, thank you. Maybe you've been dismissed too. Maybe someone once made you feel like your excellence was too much. That your silence meant weakness. That your edge wasn't welcome. I'm here to tell you, they were wrong. You are not invisible. You are not too much. You are exactly enough. And when the world underestimates you, don't shrink to fit. Build something bigger. Let your doubt become data. Let their rejection become your blueprint. Let every insult become oxygen for your fire. Because sometimes the people who fear your brilliance are the ones most threatened by your potential. So keep building. Keep showing up. And never, ever let anyone convince you that results are something to hide. They're just terrified of what happens when you finally get the room you deserve. And you will. Because this is just the beginning.